Hello, I'm Natalie Pantaleo. Welcome back to the Inside Out podcast. I'm here with my friend, a Philly legend in his own time, defense attorney Chuck Peruto. Welcome to the kitchen, Chuck. Thank you for fitting me in.
Where's the applause?
I'm happy you're here. So, I started this podcast because I am fascinated by storytellers. And I've had people on who are local authors or filmmakers or storytellers of some sort, but you're the first, and who else should I have? Of a trial attorney. And I just think it's fascinating how trial attorneys have to build a narrative. And you've done a lot of this in your life. And it brings me back to some of my earliest memories of you with storytelling with one of your most famous trials, the Gary Hideneck trial.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah. So, tell me a little bit about how you build a story. I mean, I know it's based on the facts of a case, but as an attorney, what has to go into that story to make it work?
Well, the first premise is a jury does what it wants to do. Mm-hmm. So you got to make them want to listen to you and want to side with your client, regardless of the facts. I mean, the evidence is always against you in criminal law. So you have to make the jury want to do it. So the first thing you have to do is pick jurors who are going to want to think your way, want to side with the defendant. And there's always some, I don't care how crazy he is or what he's done or she, there's always jurors out there that are going to listen. So your job is to find them. And of course, don't make it too obvious, because then the district attorney or the U.S. attorney will strike them. So once you get somebody who will listen, you got to tell a story that they could relate to. And all you need is one juror and you're home.
One juror, that's it. And
That's
there's
right.
been a million movies about that. I could think
Yes.
of 12 Angry Men.
That was a great movie.
Yeah.
Great movie. Lee J. Cobb.
Uh-huh.
I remember it.
I had to study that for some classes in school. I'm not sure which now. It's been a while. But not only does the story play out inside the courtroom, you're also, in a way, a PR person, or your firm or group of people you're working with, right? For
Yes.
a certain story, to get the story out in the court of public opinion.
But not the way it's done today.
Okay. Tell us the
see
difference.
The public relations, I see people trying to case in the press before the trial starts. I don't do that, because then those jurors who are going to say, yes, I do have an opinion about the case, I don't think he did it, because they've been molded by public opinion, then the prosecutor's going to knock that juror off. So I start after the jury starts. Because now that the jury is seated, then you want to plant these stories and influence the jury, which we're not supposed to do, but we all do it.
Yeah. I was thinking back, and this is, it was a serious story, but it was funny at the moment. You might remember this because I bring it up to you every time I see you. I'm going to date myself and Chuck. Going back to Scruples, a nightclub that was really popular in Philadelphia in the 80s. And I remember bumping into you there. And that day, earlier that day, in the Daily News, if I'm not mistaken, which is no longer Philadelphia Daily News, there was a story about either a deposition of Gary Hideneck, the serial killer, notorious Philadelphia serial killer, and he couldn't answer the questions, and he said he couldn't answer because he was eating Chip Ahoy's.
Oh, yeah, he came up for parole the first time, and you would think he would answer favorably so he can get out of jail. And he wrote on a piece of paper, I can't answer that because the devil put a cookie in my throat.
Oh, a cookie. That's what I said, Chip Ahoy's.
And I introduced that at his later trial to say, it's not feigning insanity. He really is the real deal.
I see. Okay. Because I wondered if that was a story that got out to the news because it really happened, or not that it was ever.
I'm going to tell you a case.
All right.
Where I planted so many stories in the news, he became a folk hero, and that was Joey Coyle.
I was going to ask you about him.
Joey Coyle was a longshoreman. He found $1.2 million in unmarked $100 bills,
Right.
and he took it. He gives the driver that he found it with $50 after he broke 100.
Right.
Didn't even give him 100, and hid it, and basically hoarded the money. Didn't give any money out. I was releasing stories to because there was 4 papers back then: the Philadelphia Journal, the Daily News, the Bulletin, and the Inquirer. I was giving each one an exclusive story, and they're printing them all like saps. And they had him paying for a girl's braces, buying the kids' school books, going in and paying this one's electric bill. He didn't do any of that. He didn't do any of it. And people believed he was a folk hero. Like, this guy's helping
Robin
people.
Hood.
I can't believe they're going to arrest him and prosecute him and this and that. And the only one that knew that the stories were fake were me and the DA.
So how do you feel about that now, though? Whatever it takes to win?
I'd do it again.
Oh, okay.
He was found not guilty, and that, why mess with success?
Right, exactly. You know, speaking of that case, I listened to a podcast interview with you on Philly Blunt.
Okay.
And you talk about persuasion, how a trial attorney, and when you're delivering this narrative to a jury, and even before, every interaction, you're pretty much on a stage when you're in a courtroom.
Oh, yeah.
And every interaction, you know, the jury's weighing in their mind if you're credible or you're not credible. Do I believe this guy? Do I not believe this guy? And I teach a course at LaSalle as an adjunct professor, as a matter of fact, in persuasion, but it's in the Master's Communication Department. And I was listening to some of the things you said, and you said, what are some of the persuasive tactics?
Well, number one, facial expressions and body language. That's so important because the DA is talking. If you can get the jury to look at you and you have a facial expression that, I can't believe this guy's so boring, they're going to be bored.
Right.
If you look as if in disbelief, they're not going to believe it if they like you. So true with the defendant. He's got to dress the part. He's got to look the part of the picture you're trying to paint, because that's halfway home. When Gary Hideneck, for instance, got arrested, he had the trimmed beard, the coiffed hair, the suede jacket. But by the time he got to trial, he had a beard down to here. His hair was never washed. He didn't bathe for 6 weeks. His hair was straight back, and his mustache was growing in his mouth because it was an insanity defense. And jurors look at the defendant, and he doesn't look insane to me. He looked insane by the time he went to trial.
It's not funny, but it's funny. I remember, actually, as you're saying it, I actually could visualize it in the paper, or on the news, or whatever it was at the time, you know?
Yeah.
And so facial expression, so I know there's like this, you know, the tenets of persuasion, at least the way I teach it, right? The ethos, you have to connect with someone emotionally. The logos, you have to connect with their sense of logic, right? And then there's the, what is the third tenet for credibility? Or did I mix them up? But how am I going to teach the course?
I got to tell you a quick story. I'm out in the hallway, and this witness who's on the on-deck circle, I call it, he's ready to come in and testify. He's got red, not maroon. He's got red snakeskin shoes, and they were so ridiculous that I have to get the jury to see these shoes. Well, the jurors, when they're in the jury box, there's the bar of the court here, so they can't see his shoes. So when he walks in, I got to do something to call their attention to those shoes. So as he's walking and he's right in the middle of the jury box, I jump out of my seat and I get 4 feet from his shoes, and I'm like this. So they naturally look down to see what I'm looking at, and they see the shoes. And I had these 2 Spanish girls in the front row, and they're kicking each other, like nudging each other, laughing. Those things make a difference in a case. They really make a difference in a case, because he's trying to say that he has this job as a stockbroker, and he just didn't look the part. So
all these little things build the narrative.
They all go into a verdict.
Right.
They're,
So is there like an acting or theatrics class in law school that you got to take, or you just
I
have
don't
to be
think I
good at
needed
it?
there should be.
Yeah.
But I mean, some people should just not become lawyers. They just don't have it. They don't have the personality for it. And then others who would have been great lawyers don't go to law school. And I hear this all the time. Oh, so-and-so would make a great lawyer. He argues about everything. That does not make a good lawyer. That's the worst. Jurors don't want to hear you arguing about everything. Persuasion is different than arguing. You want to, sometimes it takes very few words to critique somebody's story. Sometimes you say, really? That's your cross-examination.
Arguing can be annoying if you're listening to it, right?
Argumentative, it loses the jury. I mean, there's very few one-day jury trials. It might work if you have a one-day jury trial, but a 2, 3 day, 4-week jury trial, I don't care if your client's innocent, you're going to lose because people are sick of you.
Right. So you still have the passion. You still have the passion for it, even though you had a stint through your hat in the ring for Philadelphia DA.
Well, I could have just done the other side, but it would still be my passion. And as DA, I would have tried cases. No DA ever goes and tries the cases. But it's passion, because if they took my law license, The only thing I would care about is I wouldn't be able to talk to a jury anymore, and that would kill me.
Wow. So you think there's any other political offices in your future?
Never.
Never?
Never. I wouldn't even run for DA again. I mean,
No.
I got suckered into that. First of all, I was a Democrat my whole life, and then I switched to Republican because
run.
these guys promised me 500,000 and 500,000 right from the state. And after Carlos Vega got beat so bad by Larry Krasner in the Democratic primary, they pulled out. They said, "There's no way you're beating this guy. Forget it." So there I am, naked. I'm on the ballot, and I have no money. So I hired a truck with a billboard that I paid for, and I just drove around town blasting,
I saw it.
blasting my little story. And I see Larry Krasner after the election. He says, "There's only one thing you said that really annoyed me." I said 100 things that should annoy you. What? He said, "You got on that loudspeaker and you said, the last time Larry Krasner put somebody in jail, he was a public defender." And he was mad. But I'm still standing.
Yeah. How about a book? You told me you'd like to write a book someday. Yeah.
I always toyed with the idea of writing a book about my cases. Nobody cares about my life. And
Oh, well, that's pretty interesting too. That's made
well, I
some
found that out
stories.
when a
I
girl
made a
died in
book.
my tub.
Right,
I
exactly.
found that out. But there's just no time. I mean, a real trial lawyer doesn't have time to write a book because
You're busy.
you're constantly, there's not enough time in the day to keep up with your cases. And when people say, "Did you read about this case with so-and-so?" I said, "No, I'm reading about my own cases, and I got to prepare for them every night. And if I have time off, I'm not reading, I'm working out, or I'm traveling, I'm doing something other than reading."
So maybe, how about your antique car collection? Maybe you do a little book about your antique car collection.
Who's going to buy it? Who's going to buy the book? It would be a
Be
pamphlet.
for fun. It would be
It'd
like a labor of
pamphlet,
love.
not a book.
Right.
I mean, that is my passion. It's too much. I mean, lately in the last
Yeah.
15 years, it's just sucked the life out of me because I'm just obsessed with classic cars.
Yeah, I know. I saw some of them when I was at your
Yeah.
house in your garage, and other pictures too. Well, I wasn't going to bring up the Dead Girl in the Bathtub. That is the name of a book of. Is it Lisa DePaula who
Lisa DePaula did
wrote
the
it? She did
lengthy
the interview for
Philadelphia article,
Magazine.
but then they made a Lifetime movie about it, which I was shocked that it was that newsworthy. And they did it, and I'm watching it, ready to cringe. But they made me look good, so I didn't sue. I didn't do anything. I said, "Okay, let them go," because they actually used my name in the movie.
Right. Well, I guess some of that's public record. It was a real case in Philadelphia.
Yes.
And now, you know what struck me about that case is you did things that you would not advise your clients to do if you
I went on. Anybody who would ask me, I would tell the whole story. And by the way, Seth Williams, who went to jail, he really had it in for me. And I'm operating under the assumption, because he wouldn't convene the grand jury for 7 months while my father was dying. It turns out, and I didn't know this, she didn't drown in my bathtub. She never drowned in my bathtub with people, because there was never a story released. The accusations were released. That was on front page. But the bottom line was never released. She expired from alcoholic poisoning. She had a 0.45 blood alcohol content and fell into the bathtub. And that's why she was face down. And that's why the towels were
I
pulled in,
remember
because
reading
she grabbed the towels
Right.
and fell into the tub. And that's why there was no water in her lungs.
Right.
So at first they're like, did he kill her and then put her in the tub? Because
Right.
after they do the autopsy, there's no water in her lungs.
Right.
And I don't know
And
these
you were
things.
out of state anyway.
I don't know these things.
You were
Like,
in
they're
New
not
Jersey.
telling me
Right.
about the toxicology reports or the autopsy. I'm in the dark about all this. But the homicide detectives, thankfully, who had more sense than Seth Williams, they were
He was the prosecutor.
they were telling me, "Chuck, you have nothing to worry about. This is not a homicide. This is an accidental death." But her family, they want somebody to pay. It's natural.
Right.
So they want somebody to pay, and I was
Right.
the scapegoat.
Right. We have another mutual friend, Heidi Valari, who
Sure.
and Heidi is more medical practice, and she says when she's working with families of a victim who's lost, right? She said that they look to me like they they want something back, and when they get it, it's never going to bring back the person,
No.
you know. But it's something they feel they have to do when you say that about suing.
Heidi's actually good at that. You know, Heidi
Yeah.
worked for me for a few years.
Yeah.
But when she came out of law school, oh boy, did I kill her. I would kill her. Because she's easy to tease.
Yeah.
She takes everything so seriously. But
But she's killing it. I mean, she's doing a
she's
fantastic.
doing very well because she works.
Yes.
And I hope
Works
she got
hard.
that from me. You got to work. It doesn't, you know, people aren't just going to bring you cases and then you sit around and they settle themselves. When I get a case, you got to work it. You got to
Yeah.
work it up. You got to convince the defense attorney why he should pay you X amount of money.
Right. Well, there's one thing I know about Heidi, and she is a worker.
Oh, she's a worker.
She's
Her
also
whole family's
a
a worker.
Virgo. Yeah.
Bonnie,
Yeah.
I love the whole family.
Yeah, they're all great.
Yeah.
They're all great.
Yeah, they're great people.
So you're still practicing, you're still with the firm, right?
Yep.
And how about, like, you know, just looking for the next really big, exciting case that you can
They'll come in.
yarn, weave a yarn?
There's exciting cases all the time, but people today, they say, oh, I haven't seen you in the news. Did you retire? Well, not every case is newsworthy.
Right.
And because print media is basically going out of business, they don't have a reporter covering the courthouse anymore.
Right.
There used to be 2 reporters each day following cases around. They don't; those reporters don't exist anymore. So what happens in court gets reported a week later, and it's somebody's version of what they saw in the courtroom, so it's not really what happened. So it's a shame because courts aren't covered. Real big cases are, but that lost its luster. Only on real big cases are you going to get coverage.
All right. But some of your cases were so big that you were on documentaries. You're featured in documentaries and
Yeah.
interviewed, and
Yeah.
one not too long ago, right? Was it Lifetime or what was?
There was one where a girl ran over her boyfriend, and the video killed her because she reversed the car and ran him over again. There's one that she hid in a closet and waited for her man to come home and shot him. That was on Oxygen. I forget that's the name of the network. I forget the show.
All right.
Yeah, there was like about 10 of them
Yeah.
that ended up getting a whole lot of television publicity.
Right, but not in the local things. And you know, crime is, to me, one of the most captivating subject matters, right? Mike Cotto's book, or you know, crime thriller. And when stories are based in real, authentic stories, they're riveting because they're real. You know, people can believe them. And
I mean, there's a lot of people who have a passion. There are people who come down and watch me all the time in court. There's a bunch of older guys who call my office constantly. When is Chuck going to have a jury trial again? And they'll come down and watch because they're all retired. And there used to be the wandering jurors in my father's day. It was the same 6 guys that went from trial to trial to trial. And I used to learn so much from those guys.
wow.
Of what affects them, what they thought was good, what would persuade them. They're people, and even though they're 75 years old, 80 years old, I would listen to them because that's who your jurors are.
All right.
So it's all pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm so appreciative of you taking time out of your busy day to tell us a little bit about how the legendary Chuck
Busy
Peruto.
day, I was sleeping on the couch.
How you weave a story, you know, for the jurors and how it all, I mean, just a little, we got a little insight into it. So I'll put in the description, you know, how you can follow Chuck, or if you need his help, how you can find his law firm or what have you. And I really appreciate it if you hit like or subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Chuck.